generative AI is such a big revolution, healthcare systems will not be able to sustain the way we are going. My vision is that wearables can change the world. Smart watches and fitness trackers, the traditional fitness bands that we see now, in 5 to 10 years now, would become obsolete and even disappear. The metaverse is very interesting for healthcare.
João, for a number of years, you've been bringing global opinion leaders together to discuss healthcare challenges on your Healthcare Uncomplicated YouTube channel. Today, we're pleased to have you as our guest on the Andersen Healthcare channel, and I look forward to discussing with you the impact of disruptive technologies and their potential to drastically alter the way healthcare is shaped and delivered. João, you're widely recognized as an expert and keynote speaker in wearable technology, a business thought leader, mentor, advisor, and entrepreneur. What would you like to add to this long list as a brief introduction?
Sure. Sergey, nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is João Bocas. I always say I'm a Portuguese national, global citizen, based in UK for the last 22 years. Right now I'm in Brighton, as you well know. And I always talk about health and healthcare. The last 15 years I've been heavily involved in global digital health. But I have many passions, but definitely health is one of my passions, and it was a natural progression into my career to be involved in digital health. So I'm delighted to be here with you, and I look forward to the interview, really.
You have built an impressive career working in diverse sectors, including financial services, healthcare, sports, and mass media. Why have you currently chosen to focus solely on digital health?
Well, good question. As I mentioned before, I have many passions, but I always say that I have two main passions, health and sport. I work in professional sport for a number of years, and kind of they go hand in hand, health and sport. But I decided to focus on healthcare solely as my main industry for now. And it was a natural progression, as I was mentioning before. I was in corporate wellness, I've been in health and fitness for a number of years, and healthcare for the last 20 years, and I would say the last 8 years heavily involved in global digital health innovation. And I really have a passion for health. I was very unhealthy for a number of years, and I want to, first of all, be fairly healthy, but also create an impact to other people's lives, improving their health and their well-being and their happiness overall.
That's great. Do you have an IT project? Andersen will do everything to launch it as soon as possible. Strengthen your resources with our specialists. Hire a well-coordinated, dedicated team, or entrust the entire development process to us. Getting started is easy. Fill out the contact form to get a free consultation.
What conditions are necessary for the sustainable implementation of digital health? Which countries that have successfully implemented digital transformation in healthcare should inspire us to adopt their best practices?
Right, great question. So I believe to be successful with the implementation, we have to have a clear goal in mind, a clear strategy, and also have certain conditions such as infrastructure and things like that. And then in order to achieve a goal, many other aspects are very important. People, places, processes, and technology. The channel is about healthcare technology. We always talk about technology, focus a lot on technology, but the other aspects are kind of more important, and technology brings everything together. So people, places, processes, and of course a clear strategy. Moving on to the second part of the question, which countries? I always talk about the Nordic countries, because for me in health tech, they are the countries to follow the great work that they're doing. The likes of Finland, Denmark, Norway. I always think about Estonia, which is considered the digital, let's say, country reference of the world. They brought all the electronic health records together. many years ago. I think it's probably, to be fair to the other countries, slightly easier because they have a much smaller population, but also they've done the things that I mentioned before, a clear strategy, a thought after plan, and then they're gonna do it. I think the other countries can really you look at them as a reference and follow suit.
How would you describe the United States healthcare system from a technological perspective?
Yeah, sure. I think they're advancing fast now in terms of technological developments and catching up with innovation and everything else. But of course, the United States are a different kind of healthcare proposition that they face many internal challenges. First of all, there is no health system like the United States. Yeah, it's very big, it's still fully privatized, and they face much more issues than the traditional health system, you know. But I'm seeing a lot of progress, and there's a lot of great people, great companies, and great innovators doing great work to solve the major issues that's going on in the country right now.
In your interviews and speeches, you say that healthcare needs to be simple. Yet each year, it's becoming more and more digitally inclined, gadget-driven. Isn't there a contradiction between being simple and being tech-enabled?
Absolutely. Because, in my opinion, healthcare is complicated, is very complex already. And, of course, adding gadgets and adding more innovation, and for example, you know, I talk a lot about wearables and medical devices, that adds a different layer of complexity and adds more issues and more challenges to the equation. So it's a kind of paradox, a contradiction, but also we need them in order to advance to a different phase of really solving the major issues that we need to.
As the digital healthcare industry grows, healthcare companies are not only discovering new development opportunities, but also facing a new set of challenges hindering the creation of sustainable business models. You provide consulting for a large number of businesses. What are the most common challenges facing digital healthcare companies today?
Well, many challenges appear all the time. I think one of the biggest challenges is the fragmentation. Everything is very fragmented. So when you're trying to implement a new, for example, adopt a new technology, you always have to consider what you have in place, what is new, what is old, how can that be implemented right away, and sometimes it's not always possible. Interoperability is a big thing, and then there are other many challenges related to technology innovation, such as data transference, security, but also I think many companies don't know where to start. And if we talk, for example, about wearables, that's the reason why not many people are actually doing things on the ground practically, because they don't know where to stand, don't know where to start, don't know where to go. So I provide a number of services, but also some thought expertise about giving them ideas to kick off the innovation strategy, which is crucial in order to catch up with other companies, to be competitive, but also to go forward in their own journey.
Speaking of new beginnings, what areas are the most promising for investment, in your opinion?
Well, I like wearables, as you well know, but now we've seen generative AI, as you know, this is the biggest. With some opinion leaders and experts believe that generative AI is such a big revolution in comparison like being the new internet in terms of technology. And I'll give you an example. We've been talking about artificial intelligence for quite some years, and all of a sudden artificial intelligence really took off with GPT and other technologies. And generative AI is one of these things that a lot of investors are very interested, because the return on investment can be very significant. But also I would have a look around wearables, around other smart technologies, the Internet of Things with sensors, and there are many exciting things happening.
During the interview with Dr. Hans Kluge, the WHO Regional Director for Europe, you were discussing the main threats to global healthcare: infectious and non-communicable diseases, antimicrobial resistance, and climate changes. How can active implementation of digital technologies help protect healthcare against those threats?
Well, digital technologies can really play a crucial role in here. For example, accessing rural areas and parts of the population where they're more underserved and less likely to receive the same type of care, quality of care, or any care at all. But in terms of global challenges, health equity is now a big theme. Talking about global health equity where everyone can have the same access to healthcare, technology play a big role there. And also disseminating to the masses, which is really, really important.
I'm on a mission to fix healthcare seems to be your professional slogan. What wrongs in modern healthcare would you fix in the first place?
Well, I know it's a big ambition of mine. Of course, I cannot do it on my own. I'm not that powerful yet. But I would say, as I mentioned before, fragmentation, and also the perceive that healthcare is complicated, is complex, is difficult. So I would actually start by demystifying healthcare. And healthcare in a nutshell is very, very simple. Adopting healthy behaviors and try actually to prevent things before they happen. Before you have a disease, instead of treating a disease, if you could avoid having one, that would be the ideal case scenario. That leads me to actually always play devil's advocate that we do very little in preventative care. And what is always missing from my 20-year career in health is always health education. We need to educate people. Everybody knows that, for example, sugar or alcohol is bad for you, but nobody is doing anything. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago in UK, there was a public health campaign called 5 a day for people to increase their fruit intake and vegetable intake, which was great. Raising awareness around health behaviors is extremely, extremely important. And for one reason or another, the governments, because of the lack of funds and resources, they're not doing their bit. And also the private organizations, they don't see that is their role to do that preventative care piece. So the health education piece is always missing.
Earlier this year, Goldman Sachs predicted that generative AI could raise the global GDP by 7% over a 10-year period, but its application goes far beyond mere economic benefits. What are the main advantages of using generative AI in healthcare?
Well, generative AI has got so much potential and now is really a big focus. To start with, I would say easier access to healthcare, reduction in costs, solving big global issues, health issues, but also critical issues in healthcare, such as the medical professionals shortages, and compensate digital strategies and digital solutions to more populations. And what is very interesting also about generative AI is this. A few years ago, to touch artificial intelligence or AI, you needed to be an expert. Now with generative AI, is accessible to everyone. Anyone can do a search on a ChatGPT, create content, do research, learn, educate themselves, educate others. So I see generative AI playing a multi-role, if you like, in healthcare.
The shortage of healthcare professionals in many parts of the world is a major challenge that has the potential to affect the quality of care available to patients. So how exactly can generative AI help alleviate the shortage of healthcare workers?
Well, for example, generative AI can be used on a mass streamline for education and training. For example, distributing content effectively, but also to the masses. Also improving efficiencies with already existing professional guidelines and things like that. So they can be very useful, not just for the population, but also for the healthcare professionals.
I have a long list of examples showing that the healthcare industry is enthusiastically embracing new generative AI tools. Epic is integrating GPT-4 into its EHR, Google Cloud and Mayo Clinic struck a partnership focused on generative AI. How do you see the further potential of this technology in healthcare? How does it extend the capabilities of patients and healthcare professionals?
Well, I can really see a lot of potential. We also have to be careful to get the balance right around the technology, artificial intelligence, and the human-centered care. So we have to consider these aspects. But we can start with, for example, workflow automation. We can start with, I mentioned training before, predictive analytics. There are many things that we can actually do on the ground. And you asked me before about an example. I always remember this company called Unlearn. They're doing something really innovative around creating a digital twin for every clinical. They do clinical trials for any clinical trial patient. And that's a clear example where we can improve things and use generative AI on a mass scale, but also individualized treatment plans, individualized clinical research, clinical trials. And that's one thing that is extremely difficult to do in healthcare, is personalized healthcare. And generative AI can really play a strong role there.
Do you think it's going to be expansive?
Well, hopefully not, because we have spent many years researching and speculating. And I think now we got to a stage where we kind of cracked the code around technology. Is about now really put that into practice. And certainly cost reduction is a big thing. And I think we are seeing that on the ground right now.
One of the analysts of CB Insights names 3 main areas in the healthcare sector where generative AI is thriving the most: caregiving and navigation, digital therapies and wellness tools, and pharmaceutical research and development. Do you have any inspiring examples to share?
Sure. Well, we have seen, as I mentioned before, generative AI in the pharma space is relatively new. So creating digital twins, personalized health, and personalized medicine seems to be kind of new, but it's not, because we have been doing that for quite some time. But generative AI, I had this vision that the combination of wearables and artificial intelligence could be the game changer in healthcare. And certainly we're getting to a very interesting development stage where we already have the wearables, we have the innovation, and now we have generative AI that can bring us more qualitative data that, blending it together, can really take things forward to a different stage that much needed in innovation.
There are plans to use generative AI for drug discovery, medical diagnosis, personalized treatment, and clinical research. However, this requires resolving such challenges as the lack of explainability of AI, little or no transparency, the need for large quality data sets, ethical and legal considerations, etc. Can we expect that with a wider adoption of generative AI, healthcare will become somewhat formal and impersonal?
Sure. Well, we have this risk of thinking that AI can be impersonal, and there are many concerns. Even Elon Musk talks about the concerns with AI. We've seen later, for example, the Congress in US creating legislation around AI and generative AI. So we must protect the humanity around the threats to AI, but also at the same time get the clear balance that AI is not here to threat anyone. But the ethical side is very important, creating strong ethical and data protection protocols that make sure that everyone is protected and AI is used in a meaningful way.
One of the major problems associated with the use of generative AI in healthcare is the black box problem, stemming from the difficulty in understanding how AI systems and machine learning models process data and generate predictions or decisions. One of the most complicated aspects of this problem is that companies such as OpenAI don't disclose the data used for training. Along with that, even the most sophisticated machine learning models seem to have severe issues with accuracy. There are plenty of examples of GPT-4 hallucinating facts or generating inaccurate responses. What are the ways to increase the safety of their use?
Sure, I think the ethical side is extremely important. Creating data, perhaps implementing strategies such as more data and training strategies for those using AI, doing ongoing iterations, and make sure we always use people, because people drive technology. Technology doesn't drive people. So I think it's very important to do iterations as we go along, and we're all learning about still AI and generative AI, but having strong ethical protocols is very, very important.
Do you think that governments should have a say in this?
Sure, absolutely. I mentioned the USA Congress, the AI Regulation Act that just came out in May and is a very hot topic right now around the world. And I believe governments, they should play a part in creating transparent and trustworthy regulation to make sure that, of course, everyone plays on regulatory grounds for the right reasons.
You use your YouTube channel to engage with industry-leading experts in the fields of wearable technology and digital healthcare, and to share your breakthrough ideas and insights. Considering what you know so far, what do you think the future of Society 5.0 looks like?
Well, that's a big question. Now societies are creating the 5.0 implementation, and for example, smart cities have 8 pillars, and one of the pillars is health communities. And creating sustainable health is extremely, extremely important, with wearables or without wearables. But I believe wearables will play a crucial role. And going a bit further on that, we're seeing now that is very clear healthcare systems will not be able to sustain the way we are going. And I'll give you an example. Even the NHS in UK, which is an incredible health system, has been struggling for a number of years to cope. And creating sustainable healthcare strategies is certainly very important. And embedded that in society with smart cities is on the agenda of many, many global governments already.
Experts are in agreement that wearables will be the driving force behind a revolution in the healthcare industry over the coming years. Can you explain the importance of wearables in the healthcare of the future?
Yeah, sure. So I always say my vision is that wearables can change the world, and certainly the healthcare world. I can see wearables being the perfect vehicle to gather data, to help people manage existing conditions, implementing healthy behaviors, and also even having a role on controlling other elements such as nutrition, sleeping patterns. So I see wearables as a partner for the human being. But of course, in healthcare, they can play a strategic role, a crucial role in bringing what is important in tracking health parameters and bringing human health to the forefront.
Despite its popularity, there are certain challenges associated with wearable technology, including issues with accuracy, data ownership, limited availability of research, and its slow adoption in healthcare. We need to make advances in sensor technology, calibrate procedures, and refine data analysis algorithms in order to guarantee higher accuracy. In your opinion, what are the other most pressing issues with wearables, and how do you think they need to be addressed?
Yeah, you already mentioned certain challenges. A few years ago, I've done a research on health wearables engagement, 153 pages report, and we come up with user-related barriers. And for the user, for example, the lack of intrinsic motivation is one of the top barriers, plus privacy concern, security concerns, and then forgetfulness, because we are human beings. We break a pattern of behavior, and there no data, no value. But also, one thing that came up was the sense of no value in using wearables. People still thought, what's the point? On the other hand, we come up with some device-related barriers, and on the top is interoperability. As you well mentioned, wearables bring another set of challenges, and the interoperability, communicating with other existing systems, and the integration is always a bit of an headache. And also privacy and the data being used for the right reasons. And I'll give you an example. Over the years is always this speculation that health data is very precious, health data is going to be sold, but people are actually very open to share their data if it's for a research project around cancer, or they know is used for a meaningful way. So wearables certainly have a lot of potential, but they also bring more complexity and more challenges, unfortunately.
In one of your interviews, you said that in healthcare, the challenges with wearable devices are related to standardization. There are regulations, but there are just a few standards that healthcare professionals and companies can follow. What standardization system do you think would resolve the current issues?
Well, wearables, we mentioned that they bring a lot of different challenges. One of the challenges bringing too much data proliferation from different systems, and also not being able to communicate with many existing systems. And then there is no benchmark at the moment to know what is good practice, what is good data. So standardization around data is fundamental, but I think we are at the beginning of that journey. There is no regulation right now, and also a framework. Perhaps creating a right framework to getting overcoming this issue around accuracy, reliability. We have the main regulatory bodies setting the standard, but there also is still a very gray area to what is good data and what is not good data, for example.
What obstacles must be overcome for these kinds of entities and frameworks to exist in the market?
Well, I think now I've been seeing the regulatory bodies are more open to innovation, taking a bit of a risk, letting more innovation coming to the marketplace, but it's still very concerning for them that too many companies are trying to enter the marketplace at the same time. And I think they need support in around creating data standards and good practices, because we're seeing hundreds and even thousands of innovators trying to do the same thing and enter the marketplace. And there are lots of medical devices, lots of platforms, lots of digital tools. So I think is still a lot of work to be done. And there are great people doing great things. In UK, there are global companies, the American Heart Association creating guidelines, for example, in digital health. So there are people moving these important agendas forward in digital health, which is much, much needed.
Currently, the most successful wearables in the market are smartwatches, health and fitness trackers, with a relatively new model of hearing aids becoming the dominant category. This year, hearing aids with biometric, proximity, motion, and other sensors appeared. being able to collect contextual information about the user. How do you see the future of the industry in the next 5 years, and what areas would you invest in?
Sure, yeah, we've seen quite a lot of innovation. The wearable space is still growing of a compound rate of over 13% per year. The hearables is a very interesting segment of the market. I also would like to mention smart glasses and smart clothing, which smart clothing, e-textiles are entering the market rapidly because of the sensing capabilities. Wearables and wearable technologies can go more or less anywhere and everywhere around the body, around the clothing, smart belts, smart rings, I mean, you name it, smart shoes. We're seeing so many things. But I would say for the mass market population, the health wearables are still a very safe bet because you have a mass market to target. But I would also go for the smart glasses, which I remember the Google glasses came out a few years ago. They were very expensive. The market was not ready. But I think now we are ready for that type of innovation. And finally, I would argue that smartwatches and fitness trackers, the traditional fitness bands that we're seeing now, in 5 to 10 years now, would become obsolete and even disappear.
The majority of wearables are equipped with embedded NFTs that can help not only certify ownership and authenticity, but also create a digital twin that can be used in a digital space such as the metaverse. What other NFT use cases have the potential to change the world of wearables as we know it?
Well, certainly fashion tech is a very big one. We see now a lot of fashion tech NFTs. Also in social media, creating avatars and personalized body digital twins, as you mentioned. So now the NFTs are actually encompassing many industries. And I think this is just the beginning. Even the famous pop stars now are creating NFTs to be unique. So they certainly create a very unique proposition that you can take forward in a digital way.
Embedded technology is a new exciting space. Sensors and processors can be embedded in clothing or accessories to augment the basic functionality. Devices that don't yet contain embedded computing technology are likely to get it soon. What embedded software trends are the most relevant today?
Well, we certainly still see a very strong proposition around IoT. You know, the Internet of Things with the metaverse. The metaverse is very interesting for healthcare with augmented reality, mixed reality. Yeah, but I'm also thinking about we entering a new phase of technology development. 6G is coming, and I'm not sure if you heard of it, but the Internet of Senses, where we can now with the gesture and visual and apathic can create things, command objects, even wearables. So things are evolving really fast, which is phenomenal. I'm still thinking that cloud computing is very powerful because it's the layer that makes everything happening. And of course, artificial intelligence, machine learning play a very strong role. We see now lately the development in artificial intelligence with generative AI and the MMLs, the LLMs, actually the large language models with GPT. All of these are still very interesting technologies that are coming to revolutionize the marketplace as we see it.
Biometric sensors are actively implemented into wearables. Smartwatches and fitness trackers can collect data on various physiological indicators such as heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. What other new features and forms may soon appear in wearables that are worth keeping an eye on?
Yeah, well, we're already seeing some very interesting things happening. For example, your Oura Ring or your Fitbit tells you to stretch your legs if you are 3 or 4 hours in the same position. I would like to see more smart notifications around the behavioral piece, because one thing is the technology side, and the other thing is the human behavior. And the trick is always in a change of behavior. So I would like to see more smart notifications, perhaps around sleep, even nutrition, times to eat, and more health. We talked about health education before. I think this is all interconnected. And I think sometimes the companies, they miss the point of the simplicity. They're doing great things around sleep, around health parameters, but I would like to see more smart notifications about the human behavior, really.
There is a lack of scientific evidence of the positive impact of remote patient monitoring on clinical outcomes. Apart from financial gains for healthcare facilities, what real research-proven benefits for patients do you see in the use of RPM?
Well, the remote monitoring space is still relatively new. It came out with the pandemic for obvious reasons. We see now that they clearly deliver a lot of benefits, from cost effectiveness to help people managing long-term conditions to patient engagement. So there are clear benefits and there are clear research type of things that new companies are struggling to have that evidence, but more established companies now are actually bringing these studies to the market, reduction in hospital admissions. So these things are actually impactful. So we are seeing now a very big push in remote patient monitoring.
Has this area reached its peak of development, or is there still more to come?
I believe not. I see a lot of companies appearing all the time. So the market, that tells you that the market is still pretty much at the infancy and maturing.
Global healthcare is increasingly turning to remote patient monitoring technology. However, there are several issues like security, data accuracy, and even compliance with patient requirements. What other issues associated with the use of RPM are you aware of, and what resolution strategies can you share with us?
Sure. I think we're still seeing a lot of privacy and security concerns. Also, not being fully embedded in existing workflows. So there are many issues, interoperability issues, connectivity with the different health systems. All these things present a challenge. On the other hand, in terms of giving strategies, bringing patients and people to existing processes is very, very important, and is always a missing link to bring a patient or to bring an outside influence, not just the medical professional and technology. So make sure it's still critical, but make sure you bring all the stakeholders involved, and also try to simplify the processes as much as possible and making as more interactive and enjoyable as possible, because sometimes nobody wants to answer a questionnaire of 20 or 30 questions. How can we perhaps make it a bit shorter by making it a bit more engaging? And now we're talking about a lot of different things around user UI and user interface and user design, but also make sure people have a better experience overall, so healthcare doesn't seem like it's a burden for those using it.
And last but not least, please share the names of inspiring colleagues and peers who you follow regularly in their talks and articles. Whose opinion do you trust the most when it comes to digital healthcare?
Wow, that's difficult. I could give you a very, very extensive list, but I'll definitely mention a few names that I respect and they're doing great things. I can start with Dr. Eric Topol, which I interview for my YouTube channel, but I love his work, especially around the research and the medicine side. And lately with COVID-19, he's done incredibly great work, putting out there some really great stuff consistently, day in, day out. I also like John Noster. He's a digital health influencer, but also I call him a provocateur. I like the way he actually challenges the status quo and intervenes and gives you a challenge to think about. And so I also like to mention Daniel Kraft, which is a very intelligent man, and he gives you a lot of food for thought around everything, not just digital health, but the wearables, the senses, the research. So I respect these people very much. I aspire to their work, and I believe they also respect me.
João, I appreciate all the positive energy and the insightful answers you have shared with us today. I look forward to meeting you at some of the major events in the healthcare industry and keeping our conversation going.
Sergey, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.